scoreless skid is over, and so too is the long winless run. Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of Miami Total Football Radio, aka Miami Total Football Radio. I am Franco Panizo, one part of the hosting team of this podcast, the number one podcast on all things Inter Miami, bringing you the latest news, analysis, opinions, updates, insight, and a lot more. And joining me today is none other than Jose Armando. Jose, how are you doing today on this fine Friday? Happy Friday, brother.
Happy Friday, Franco.
It's a lot of energy there, man.
Really well. I'm still happy because I think Inter Miami fans deserve that win. We will talk about it, but just to get started, very excited and happy to talk about positive things.
Yeah, it's good news this time around. Inter Miami finally won a game, and you could tell on Wednesday night and even going into Thursday just how different of a mood there was around the team. You know, we heard music blasting through the thin walls at Drive Pink Stadium from the locker room, and everyone had, well, not everyone, but mostly everyone had a smile on their face, from fans to, you know, the team to just people that work at the club, and just it was just a completely different vibe and atmosphere. So we'll touch on that game against Toronto FC. We're also going to preview Saturday's game against FC Cincinnati, another important one for Inter Miami as they continue to try to keep their season alive. So we're recording this on Friday evening, so not a whole lot of time between when we record and when the next game happens. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. So Jose, let's not waste any time. Let's get to it. Okay, Jose, so Inter Miami got back to winning ways. It ended a franchise record-tying losing streak by defeating Toronto FC 3-0 on Wednesday night at Drive Pink Stadium. We were both in attendance. So was Steven Primo Brenner, who is not here on this pod, but you know, the Miami Total Football Radio team was in attendance on Wednesday night in full force. And we witnessed, just like everybody else did, a 3-0 victory, the biggest victory in Inter Miami history. And it was a pretty convincing victory, right? Because they scored in the 10th minute through Federico Higuain. They get a second goal right before halftime off of a corner kick at long last from Christian Mccoon. So they've ended that streak of not having any goals off of corner kicks. And then they get another goal off of a corner kick. Yes, you guys heard that correctly. And no, your speakers are not breaking. Inter Miami scored two goals off two corner kicks in Wednesday's game. And the second one comes off an own goal from Eric Zavaleta. It looked initially like Lewis Morgan might have scored it, but it was credited to Eric Zavaleta. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the ball bounced off of his back and went into the Toronto FC goal. A win at last, Jose. A win at last. Before we just dive into all the X's and O's and talk a little bit more just about the 90 minutes and the performance, a win at last. How good is this for Inter Miami fans? How good is this just for the overall mood and vibe, as we mentioned in the intro, for the state of the team after such a frustrating run of results?
Well, I think it's important because, you know, first off, it keeps the hopes alive, right? You know, it's a long shot for Inter Miami to make it to the playoffs, but as long as you have a chance, you know, it gives you one more week of watching results around the league and hoping for another win over the weekend. And, you know, it just, when you are a real fan, you basically have the same mentality that Phil has been talking about in the last 2 to 3 weeks, right? You know, when you still have a shot at making to the playoffs, you never give up. And so that gives you one more week or just a few days, I guess, more, because it's a quick turnaround. But, you know, overall, I think it's good for the team to get a win. If it's the last one of the year, then let's let that happen the way it happens, because you have to understand right now that Inter Miami is struggling, and whenever you get an opportunity to celebrate, you just take it and embrace it.
So before we dive into everything, because I agree with everything you said there, this is a question that has to be asked. How much stock do you put into, not the win, because the win was a well-earned win, but the performance overall? And is this a sign of Inter Miami improving that much? Or is it a sign of just how bad Toronto FC is right now? They are below Inter Miami in the standings in the Eastern Conference, and they've been already knocked out of playoff elimination. That was already the case going into the game. and they fielded a couple of young players in that game, two teenagers. So how much stock do we have to put into the fact that they played against a Toronto FC team that's already eliminated and that has been pretty poor and has really nothing to play for?
Listen, that's an interesting question, and my personal take with that is, you know, I think you go back to the performance from the team, and I think they had a very good game. They had a very good game, knowing that you're facing a team that you're supposed to win against Toronto FC,
Yes.
but at the same time, you're a team that's not in a good run before this game. Six games that honestly, it was really hard to watch Inter Miami, and so. Um, you don't have to take anything for granted if you're Phil and if you're the group of players. So you take a good performance, you get the 3 points, and it's also important to know that Toronto FC, they are having a bad year right now, but they have quality players. So Teldo is a quality player, Pozuelo is a quality player, Bradley, well, he's still trying and he might be able to get you 10 to 15 minutes that could end up making a difference in a game. So they have quality within the team. Overall, just take the win and take the performance from the team.
So I would say you do have to put some stock into the fact that this is Toronto FC. Like I said, Inter Miami, it's a welcome development that they won a game. It's welcome how they played. I do think that they have merit in how they played to some extent, but it also has to be taken into consideration that they played a very, very poor Toronto FC team. Now, like you mentioned, Toronto FC does have some pretty good talent on that team. Jefferson Soteldo, Alejandro Pozuelo both started. Soteldo didn't last that long, though. He only lasted about midway through the first half before he came out with an injury. So that took away their real firepower. And Josie Altidore came in the second half, but he didn't make much of a difference. So it's not a great Toronto FC team, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Inter Miami's best two games this season have come against Toronto FC, right? Because before this game, if you had to point your finger at what was Inter Miami's best performance and best result this year, you would probably, I imagine, would pick the 3-1 victory over Toronto FC back in August, right? Because I think that at that point that was Inter Miami's first multi-goal victory in its history, and now they've posted their biggest win ever with the 3-0 victory. So it has to be taken into consideration that it is a very bad Toronto FC team in my opinion, but Inter Miami can only play the opponent it has in front of it, and Inter Miami took care of business in that regard, and it did so in convincing fashion. What was your biggest takeaway from the game from an Inter Miami perspective or an Inter Miami viewpoint?
Well, I think we all can agree to this. It's the formation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was something that we have been talking about in the pod, and we also asked Phil quite a few times, if at some point, it was something that the team will require for him to modify his system. And if I'm not mistaken, three times Phil mentioned in a press conference, it's not about the system, it's about the players, the individual errors. That's what's lacking right now. Well, I'm glad to see that, he was able to um, to modify his thoughts a little bit, because the changing of the formation was a big deal. That's something that changed, I think, the energy within the stadium, within the players, and of course, it comes with a little bit of risk, Franco. And if you want to be happy about the outcome of the game, we also have to recognize that Toronto had a couple of opportunities early in the game, and if they're able to capitalize on one of those two, maybe the conversation is completely different right now. But with playing with Ford in the back and with that formation, you have to understand that the team will move forward better, but that also they will be vulnerable in the back. So it's a give and take. Against Toronto, it worked. Later on, we'll talk about Cincinnati, but let me tell you, I think it will work again if he's able to put the same formation back again over the weekend.
So I think I agree with you there that the formation is the biggest talking point, and you could just see how much more free someone like Lewis Morgan felt with not having to have so many defensive responsibilities and being up in a more advanced position, playing as a winger. He started on the left side. Let's go through the lineup really quickly here before we dive further into this. This was the starting lineup for Inter Miami on Wednesday night. Nick Marsman in goal. The back four from right to left, starting with your right back, was Kelvin Leerdam in his more natural position, or in his natural position. The center back pairing was Leandro Gonzalez Pires and Christian Mccoon, and the left back was Breck Shea. The midfield duo was Gregory and Jay Chapman. Blaise Matuidi was dropped from the lineup for this one. Your more advanced midfield line, your second line of midfielders, were Indiana Vasilev on the right, Federico Higuain at the 10, and Lewis Morgan on the left. Up top, you had Gonzalo Higuain as the lone striker. So that was the formation Inter Miami went with, and it worked tremendously for this team. And I think it's something that they've needed to do for a few games now. You know, in the fiery podcast that we recorded earlier this week, it was one of my criticisms of Phil Neville in recent matches during this poor run of form, the 6-game losing streak, is that, you know, he was forcing square pegs into round holes, you know, just to have a saying, by playing players out of position, like Kelvin Leerdam, who was showing that he was not able to perform to that level, or to the level that was required at center back in that 5-man back line. And Lewis Morgan was also a shell of himself. I use that exact phrase. He was a shell of himself at right wing back. And Inter Miami needed to change things, because it simply wasn't working. They weren't scoring goals, and they were giving up goals and losing games. So clearly the repeated nature of the system and of the tactics, I thought, needed to be fine-tuned. Glad to see that it did, and that it was effective. Jose, do you think Phil Neville took too long to make this realization? Or do you think it's just a product of the situations, the moments? Because we know el fútbol es de momentos. Soccer is a game that's about moments, not even just the 90 minutes over the course of a season. It's all about moments. But do you think Phil Neville took too long to realize that he needed to move out of that 5-man backline if he didn't have the personnel available for it?
Well, yes, I think it took too long, but listen, there's always a thought process behind the decisions when it comes to formations, and this is what I'm thinking. You know, not as an excuse, but you know, if you want to be on Phil's position, why wouldn't he do it before? There are two things that come to mind. First, to have that formation, I think Fede Higuain is a key player. And can you put Fede Higuain for 4 matches in a row out there to play 60, 70, 75 minutes? I don't think you can do that. So that's the first thing. And second, you're facing teams that are a lot better offensively than Toronto. So if you expose yourself in the back and you concede 2 to 3 goals, or 2 goals, that's not great drama here. 2 goals in the first half. Are you going to be able to come back? I don't think Inter Miami, even with that formation, is going to be a team that is going to score 3 or 4 goals. They have not been the team. So that's my thought process on that. But I do believe that you know, you had a better chance, especially early on in games, if you have more of an attack-minded team. So, you know, it's a give and take. Again, I'm telling you this because it could happen tomorrow night. You know, you have a good performance on Wednesday, but you're going to concede opportunities to the opponent. And it's going to happen if you remain playing with a 4-2-3-1, because Inter Miami is one team defensively with 5 in the back, and it's another team with 4 in the back. It's only one player, but the responsibilities for the center backs, and especially with Breck Shea as a left back, you know, you leave a gap there. And so, you know, it could work on Wednesday. It did work on Wednesday, but things can change on Saturday. You just have to play with the risk. And of course, with the position that Inter Miami is in right now, you kind of have to do it because you have to win games. You know, it's not about you need a draw on the road and to win at home, and you can take the risk at home, but not on the road. Nah, right now it's too late. You have to win the remaining schedule.
So that's why I agree. That last part is why I agree with you that I think Villanova took too long to make this change. I think this change was needed earlier. And I get, like you said, to the point because, look, we have our way of viewing things from the outside, but we also try to put ourselves in the coach's shoes and see his reasoning or his rationale. And I understand wanting to stick with the five-man backline because that is what gave Inter Miami its best run of form this season. But when you're seeing the results and you're seeing the performances, I think along that way of that 6-game losing streak, the change should have come sooner, especially given the situation Inter Miami was in. You're absolutely right that playing away from home against some good attacking teams or some teams that have some good attacking power like Atlanta United, like the Portland Timbers, like the Columbus Crew, switching the formation and being more attack-minded will leave you more exposed and could get you in trouble. But Inter Miami was in a situation, like it is still now, where it needed to pick up points and it needed to win games and it needed to try to go for it. And we didn't see that. We didn't see that until this game. And we finally did get to see it in this game. And when I saw the lineup, I said out loud, finally. And I was happy to see the lineup. And I even tweeted it out beforehand. No matter how this game plays out, kudos to Phil Neville for making the change because they had to go for it. They had to go for it. And they've been needing to have to go for it. But they finally went for it. They came out in an attacking posture in that 4-2-3-1. And it just worked out really well. Obviously, Toronto FC, again, you have to take that into consideration. But Kelvin Leerdam was much better. I thought his performance levels were much better. He was better than he's been for much of the last few weeks. He got forward well. He finished with a very high passing accuracy completion rate. So he looked good. Lewis Morgan also looked good. Federico Higuain came in there and helped generate more attacking sequences and better attacking sequences. Más Futbol, as we say in Spanish. So I thought the switch to the 4-2-3-1 was a very welcome one and a very productive one. Now the challenge, which we'll talk about in the next segment, is do they keep that going into the match against FC Cincinnati? Because Leandro Gonzalez Pires picked up a yellow card in this game in the second half, and that rules him out of the FC Cincinnati match because of yellow card accumulation. So a big blow for Inter Miami, who's already reeling, who's missing Nicolas Figal, who's missing Ryan Shawcross. Ventura Alvarado is training again, but he's not there yet. He's getting close though. So let's keep on the formation, or at least on the personnel, because Federico Higuain came in and made a big impact, in my opinion. Not only does he score the winner, he helped set up the third and final goal with a pretty good delivery from the left. What did you think about his performance there? He lasted until that goal, that third goal. After that, Phil Neville pulled him and Gonzalo Higuain. He took them out of the game to keep them as fresh as possible for this weekend. So what did you think about the performance Federico Higuain put forth at the number 10 role on Wednesday?
I think it was a great performance. I think it's similar to what we have seen throughout Federico's career. Just overall a quality player. He's the type of player that will make everybody else around him better. And I think even his own brother, which obviously we know he played at a higher level, Pipita. But I think Pipita's a lot more comfortable around him. And there's a level of trust that Phil talked about it this morning. But I would like to refer to the fact that Pipita is so comfortable inside the box when his brother is around.
Yeah, you can see it. You can see it.
He doesn't even attempt to go to the middle of the field. And so that's an element that is out of reach and out of control for Fede Higuain, but that he brings to the table, and that
Absolutely.
is very important for Inter Miami.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that 100%. We're agreeing a lot on this pod. Last one we were disagreeing quite a bit with Primo, but I agree with you 100% because not only does Federico Higuain come in and generate more soccer, that's how you say in Spanish, genera más fútbol. I don't know if that translates exactly in English, so maybe generates more attacking sequences with his movement, the way he's able to find pockets of space and drift in and out. The way he passes very quickly with 1 or 2 touch passes. He doesn't dawdle on the ball a whole lot. He keeps the ball flowing and moving and getting everybody involved. So he links the team together quite a bit. But not only does he do that, he also has that X factor that you just mentioned, in that maybe you get a little bit more as a team out of Gonzalo Higuain when Federico Higuain is on the field, because Gonzalo Higuain stays in higher positions. He puts in as much effort as you've seen, or as we've seen from him, in terms of running after the ball or trying to make runs in behind. Gonzalo Higuain did get the assist. This doesn't have to do with Federico Higuain directly, obviously, but Gonzalo Higuain gets the assist on the goal to Christian Mccoon on the corner kick right before halftime that gives Inter Miami a 2-0 lead. Much different to have a 2-0 lead, obviously, than having a 1-0 lead going into the halftime. So I agree with you fully in that regard, and I think that obviously Federico's in an advanced age in his career. He's 36, if I'm not mistaken, but if you can try to get as much out of him as possible during this final stretch, I think that will give you a chance to win some games, and thrill, which is what they did. They thrilled the fans at Drive Pink Stadium, which they had not done in a long, long time. So, if Federico Higuain's body says yes, he can go again on Saturday, I fully expect him to start. Then obviously there's another quick turnaround before the Wednesday game, and then another one next Saturday. So it's a very tight turnaround. I don't expect that we'll see Federico Higuain start in all 4 of them, but if you can get him to start 2 or 3, then I think that's a good approach, and that's getting the most out of Federico Higuain. So definitely a plus for Inter Miami to have him on the field. Quickly, just want to touch on the corner kick goal, because obviously something that has been a talking point with this team for much of the past 2 years. Something that I've asked Phil Neville and different players at different points of the season about their struggles there. They finally score one. Gonzalo Higuain whips in a corner kick from the left. It takes a bounce, and it finds Christian Mccoon at the back post. He controls it and then shoots it low and into the bottom right corner. A good goal. El Dinosaurio celebration ensued, the dinosaur celebration, and he was named to the team of the week. Christian Mccoon was after that. So a good week for Christian Mccoon. Helped post a shutout and gets a goal. He almost scored another one in the second half off another corner kick. He finds the ball and smacked it towards the frame, but Alex Bono makes a good save there. So what'd you think about Inter Miami finally getting that monkey off their back and finally scoring off of a corner kick at long last?
Well, that's always good, right? Because I do believe Phil when he's saying that they do work a lot on set pieces, because of course that's a must in every team,
Right? No doubt,
but
no doubt.
so I mean it's great to see. It's great to see the players have a reward finally for the work that they have been putting out all year long. It's maybe a little bit too late, but it's always good that it happens. I want to give props as well to Christian Mccoon, because I have said before in the pod that I do believe he's a better defender with 5 in the back than with 4.
Yeah.
But I think on Wednesday he had a good performance, and well, he carries on the responsibility for tomorrow, because like you mentioned, there are a few players out. So but I want to give him props, not only because of the goal, because that's part of the job, of course, because as he moves forward on set pieces, he becomes an option to score. But I think defensively he was good on Wednesday, and I think it's a good reward overall for the whole team, not only for him to score on a set piece opportunity. I think that's good for confidence, and we'll see if they can keep it going.
Absolutely, it's good for confidence, and the win on Wednesday was good for confidence in general. I agree with you there. See, we're agreeing a lot. That Christian Mccoon, from what I've seen, in this last 2 seasons, I think he's better with 5 at the back than 4 at the back. He did hold up very well on Wednesday night against Toronto FC. I'm curious to see if he can repeat that against FC Cincinnati, because when he has a little bit more space to cover, I've seen him have issues. So, tomorrow, assuming he's going to start next to Ayman Mabika, which we'll get to again in the next segment, we have to see how he holds up there, because he's going to need to have a very big performance for Inter Miami to have a chance at pulling out the 3 points and staying within reach. Speaking of being within reach, let's just quickly break it down for anyone who might not be caught up. Inter Miami, with that win on Wednesday night, moved to within 6 points of the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Now, 6 points doesn't seem like, maybe it does seem like a lot, but it's 2 games and they have 4 left in the year. But you have to imagine that those other teams are not going to just continue to drop points every single week or every single match. So Inter Miami's probably going to have to win out, and they know that. They said that. They said as much on Wednesday night. They said as much today during the pregame press conferences. They know that they have to win out 4 games, 4 wins. That's all they can do. The rest is out of their control. But to give themselves the best chance, they have to win out. Clearly, they'll have some confidence going into the weekend after defeating Toronto FC. So that's definitely a good bit of news. Jose, anything else you want to add about this game before we put it in the rearview mirror? Anything about the formation or about the system? Anything at all with regards to what we saw on Wednesday night?
Well, just to add a little bit to what you mentioned early on about Lewis Morgan having a good performance playing in his position, I think the same. We need to say at least give a mention to Leardom as well, because he has gotten a lot of criticism playing as a center back. We have seen quite a few mistakes, but playing as a right back, his natural position, I think he did a good job on Wednesday, and so I think we shouldn't forget him as well and give him credit for a good performance.
So I will add that I also really liked Phil Neville's decision to drop Blaise Matuidi from the lineup and bring in Jay Chapman. Now, Jay Chapman only lasted through the first half, had to be removed at halftime because of an injury he picked up or he sustained, and Blaise Matuidi came in the second half, and I saw a Blaise Matuidi that was as defensively engaged and solid as I've seen maybe since he joined Inter Miami. He made a few interventions defensively, and that's a welcome sight. It's a welcome bit of news for Inter Miami, especially if he's going to have to start tomorrow if Jay Chapman cannot go. So that's definitely a talking point for me. And also Gregori. I thought he had a very good game. And when I looked at the numbers, he had a whopping, and if I might be off on the exact number, but he had, I think, 109 touches. 109 touches, which was far and away the biggest number for Inter Miami in this one from an Inter Miami player. So he was very involved in terms of with the ball and in terms of making stops on the other end as well. So a great performance from Gregory and a very good performance from pretty much the entire team. Again, for my money, the best performance Inter Miami has ever had in its short history. Do you agree with that?
I do agree. I think, well, the thing is that, when the team wins, it's hard to find a player that, didn't have a good game. I think, if we had to look for one, it's going to be hard, and we have to go back and watch video of the game.
Well, I go back and watch it. I go back and watch it a second time.
We're so used to this team winning in the last month or two that, we're just taking over every single player and pointing out the positives, which, it's great. And I'm guessing the fans are enjoying this a lot because, we tell you the truth here. So, if they end up losing the game 4-0 on Saturday, we're going to call it like it is. And
Absolutely.
So I think people are going to enjoy this, but, it's just a part of winning games. When you win, that's a different atmosphere. I think I sensed that as I was coming out of the stadium. And I'm sure a lot of people understand the situation that Inter Miami is in when it comes to the playoffs. But just the fact that you watched a good performance, that you get 3 points, it's just different.
Absolutely. And look, obviously when you win, that usually means that performance levels across the collective were better on the whole. Obviously, there's different performance levels. Some players played better than others, but normally when you win, that means that most of your players or a lot of your players played well. So, if you had to nitpick the performance, and I rewatched the game a second time, I would say Indiana Vasilev was fairly quiet there from the starting lineup, and Brek Shea had a much more tactical shift in this one, where he had to be a little bit more of a stay-at-home left back due to Kelvin Leerdam bombing up the right side. So Brek Shea didn't get forward as much. I think that was by tactical design. I think it was just part of Phil Neville's game plan, because he said it in the post-game press conference, something about not having both fullbacks push up at the same time because they just don't have the defensive solidity to be able to afford that. So it's about balancing it out, having one go and one stay, and we saw Kelvin Leerdam go quite a bit, whereas Brek Shea stayed a bit further back. So he locked down his flank. He locked down that wing, Brek Shea did. but obviously he didn't get forward as much, and I think that was by tactical design, so he didn't have as big of an impact. Although again, he defensively he did his job. Jose, let's take a quick break. We'll come back after this to preview the next game against FC Cincinnati. We'll do that after this.
I thought it's time to put them in the best positions. We've been covering the holes a little bit, covering up the cracks, and now it's time to put them in the best positions. And I felt that those players, you think about Kelvin's performance tonight, you think about Lewis's performance tonight, you think about they were back to their probably best. They look freer. And Saturday gives us another problem. Without really, we've got Christian Mccoon as our only centre-back, so you're thinking about maybe Blaise Matuidi, maybe Breck Shea. You may have to go to the three at the back as well just to give us that extra bit of experience, but we'll see. Whoever plays I'm sure we'll be up for the challenge.
Okay, Jose, so no rest for the weary. Inter Miami is back at it again on Saturday, and they take on FC Cincinnati, another struggling team in the Eastern Conference, and it'll be at Drive Pink Stadium in Fort Lauderdale. Inter Miami will be looking for the 3 points. I imagine they'll be going for it as well. They do have the loss of Leandro Gonzalez Pires due to yellow card accumulation. That combined with the absences of Nicolas Figal, Ryan Shawcross, Ventura Alvarado being on the mend, that leaves Inter Miami in a predicament when it comes to the back line. Because right now, their only natural center back option on the MLS roster, on the Inter Miami roster, is Christian Mccoon, who spoke today to us during the pregame press conference. I have reported, and I believe it has now been announced, I reported earlier today that Inter Miami was trying to get Aimé Mabika on the roster on a temporary basis, again, via use of the MLS extreme hardship rule, which allows you to add players to the roster on a temporary basis after the roster freeze deadline when you have 16 available field players, which is the case for Inter Miami right now. Jose, let's start there, because that is probably the biggest talking point going into this match for Inter Miami. Do you think that they stick with a back four, or do you think that they go to a back five because of the absences that they have at the back, because of the lack of overall experience that they're going to have at that back? Aimé Mabika made his MLS debut just earlier this month, so he's a young player. He showed well in that game against the Red Bulls, but he was part of a five-man backline there. Christian Mccoon, also another young player who still learning the position as well. He wasn't always a center back. He's played defensive midfielder. He's been playing center back this season, so what do you think Phil does, and what would you do if you were the head coach?
Well, I think, listen, you have to stay with four in the back. You're facing the last place in the Eastern Conference. There's no reason for you to be hesitant about the work that both of these players can do defensively. Talking about Mavika and Mccoon. They are young, of course, yes, but this is a game in which you can actually take risks and leave those two guys in there and just honestly concentrate on how many goals you're going to score against Cincinnati. Because if you score 4 goals, let me tell you, it's going to be really hard for Cincinnati to score 5. So just be aggressive. Be aggressive. Know who you're facing. You're playing at home. Dictate the tempo. The conditions should be favorable for Inter Miami. So forget about the defensive side. Let those young guys enjoy the game. Listen, for Mavika, playing in MLS right now is a dream come true. So, let him have fun on the field. Don't put pressure on him. Just let Higuain, let Morgan, let the attacking players take control of the game. And whenever he gets an opportunity to play a factor in the game, let that be 2-3 times in 90 minutes. Don't concentrate on him having that responsibility to take on the opportunities for Inter Miami to win this game. No, this is about Inter Miami scoring and Inter Miami securing points, and not about worrying what Cincinnati brings to the table. Inter Miami should be the better team, and they should show that on the field tomorrow night. So that shouldn't be a problem. That shouldn't be an excuse not having LGP available. I think you stay with 4 in the back. It worked on Wednesday, and it should work again tomorrow night.
So I agree with you that I think that's what Inter Miami is going to do, and I think that is what I would do as well. I do have real questions though as to Iman Mabika and Christian Mccoon as a center back tandem that has never worked together really before. They haven't played in a game together because that game that Iman Mabika made his MLS debut in, Christian Mccoon wasn't around for. He was with Venezuela's national team, so they practically have zero chemistry together, and you need that understanding between center backs. You need that tandem to know when to cover for one another and how to cover for one another and the movements that they make, etc., etc. So I think that it is going to be, I think that's the key to the game, is how they do, is how Iman Mabika and Christian Mccoon hold up. Because I think you'll get chances, and I think you're going to score goals in the 4-2-3-1, or you'll score at least one goal. But it's about, for me in this one, how the defense holds up without a veteran presence back there to really help out and lead that defensive line. Because again, just from my viewpoint, my point of view, I've already said that I think Christian Mccoon is better in a 5-man defense than a 4-man defense, because I think when he has more space to cover, he has issues. From what I've seen of Iman Mabika and from what I saw in that game against the New York Red Bulls, which again, I thought he had a good overall game, but there were moments when he had to cover more space where I saw some issues and some struggles. So in a 4-man backline, I could see them both having a little bit more difficulty, and it just depends on how they hold up tomorrow against FC Cincinnati. Obviously, FC Cincinnati is the last place team, so you don't go to 5 at the back. You have to go for it because you need goals, you need the wins. But I have questions about how that defense is going to hold up. But what is the key to the game for you? What's the key? What does Inter Miami have to do to win this game?
Well, attack. That's the key to the game for me. Attack. With no regards. Attack. Score 2, 3, 4 goals, as many goals as possible, as quickly as possible. Just attack. Know that you're facing the last place. I mean, honestly, this is the time for Inter Miami to be as aggressive as they can. To me, there's no excuse. And
well, you said it yourself, though. You said it yourself in the previous segment about the game against Toronto FC, because before Inter Miami scored, there was a decent chance that I believe Patrick Mullins got for Toronto FC in the box off of a cross, if I'm not mistaken, from Jefferson Soteldo, and he shoots it too close to Nick Marsman, but a better striker could have put that away, and Inter Miami would have been in a hole. So
yeah, I give more credit to Toronto because of the players they have than Cincinnati. Okay. Honestly, and they have good players as well. Cincinnati, they do have good players. I'm not going to say they don't have any talent, but I give more credit to Toronto. I think if they score early, they put you in trouble. And to that point, let me play this scenario for you.
Sure.
If you play with 5 in the back, not that you're saying that they will play with 5 in the back, but if you're playing with 5 in the back, and Cincinnati scores on you early on, what then? You change the tactics and you now put 4 again in the back, and why wait until Cincinnati scores for you to become the aggressor here?
Right.
I think there's no reason to do that. Right. So I'd say go with 4 in the back and just attack from the get-go. From the whistle, go and look for the first goal. And I think that's what they should do. Do not give Cincinnati a reason to believe that they can actually win the game tomorrow night, or even tie a game, because tying a game is like losing for Inter Miami at this point. So, just attack. That's the key to the game for me.
Okay. Well, I agree with you that I think they'll stick with that 4-man back line with Kelvin Leerdam. He looked good there at right back. Lewis Morgan looked good on the wing. So I don't think that they'll revert from that at this point, given that they both of those players raised their levels, and you need goals and you need the team to function better, which it did on Wednesday night. So I think Phil Neville will stick with the same 4-2-3-1 formation. However, look, it has to be noted. This has to be noted, and something we didn't touch on in the last segment. Inter Miami scored 3 goals on Wednesday. 2 came off of dead ball situations, which they haven't scored on for much of this season. They had 1 free kick goal before that from Higuain to Higuain, and then 0 corner kick goals before that. So obviously commendable and notable for them. And that their opening goal comes off of a strike from Federico Higuain that's created in part because Federico Higuain is in an advanced position, and then Alex Bono, the Toronto FC goalkeeper, makes a very errant pass. So Inter Miami didn't score from itself generating plays against Toronto FC on Wednesday. Didn't generate, those chances until late on when Toronto FC just threw numbers forward completely and had, 2-3 defenders back, and Robbie Robinson and Julian Carranza and Rodolfo Pizarro came in, and it wasn't until the end where you saw some real good chances from the run of play for Inter Miami, and they obviously weren't able to put them away, but it didn't matter because of the game being out of hand already, or being in Inter Miami's favor already by a 3-0 margin. So even in this 4-2-3-1 formation, which I agree that they'll go to, I agree that they're going to look to attack, there still needs to be some things that have to be cleaned up, because we didn't see a whole lot of clear-cut chances from the run of play during the first, 50, 60 minutes of the game. Now, what do you think Phil Neville does with the rest of the lineup? We think it's going to be, or maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but we think it'll be Nick Marsman in goal, Kelvin Leerdam, and probably Breck Shea at the fullback spots, Ayman Mabika and Christian Mccoon as your center back pairing. But what about the rest of the field? What about that first midfield line? What about that second midfield line? And what about up top? I mean, I think we both think it's going to be Gonzalo Higuain. But that midfield, let's stick with those two midfield lines, that midfield five. Is it Gregory and Blaise Matuidi, given Jay Chapman's injury? Or do you think maybe they'll get Jay Chapman and try to push through? Because he picked up the injury about midway through the first half, and he soldiered on, and kudos to him that he made it to halftime, because he was grimacing and showing signs of pain throughout the first half, but he stuck through it and fought through it and made it to halftime. So do you think it'll be Gregory and Blaise Matuidi? And above that, do you think it'll be the same that we saw in Toronto FC?
Yeah, I think Blaise is going to be back in the starting lineup, just because even if Jay is close to getting back in there, I think you just have to be a little bit cautious with him, knowing that you have two more games next week, again Wednesday and Saturday. So I think you give Blaise a chance there, and I think Feder will start again, honestly, because remember that they both the Higuain brothers came out, fairly early in the game, as it was decided, and I think they should start again. I would say Lewis on the right, and I don't know. I agree with you that Indiana. I don't know if he gets another chance there. He might be able to get it. Maybe
I
we
think
get
he
the
gets another chance. I think he'll get another chance. I think the team functioned well enough that he gets the start. And Phil Neville said today, when you have the two Higuains, Gonzalo at the 9 and Federico at the 10, that you need speed on the wings. That you need the speed, because those two players obviously aren't the fastest, right? So you need speed on the wings. So I think it'll be Indiana Vassilev and on the right, Lewis Morgan on the left. Now, Robbie Robinson did not start in the midweek match, and he's questionable for this weekend because of, well, Phil Neville said today very candidly, very openly, that Robbie Robinson has a stomach flu and has diarrhea. So he's a question mark for Saturday's game. He could be an option if he's feeling better by then, but I imagine that we'll see the same midfield minus Jay Chapman. I think Blaise Matuidi comes in for Jay Chapman just due to the injury. Although, if Jay Chapman can go, if there's any chance he can go, I know you said you take into consideration the upcoming games, but I think you start him. If he's able to play, you start him, because you can't think about the next games when you have to win this game, right? There's no tomorrow if you don't win today. So I don't think you save him. That's just my personal opinion. From the outside.
And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it's not a huge difference if you put Blaise or Jay in the middle.
I don't know about that. I think we're going to disagree there. I think Chapman gives you more. I think Chapman gives you more than Blaise Matuidi does. Blaise Matuidi, look, he has the experience, the resume, and all of that, but just from his performance levels, on a consistent basis, it just hasn't been good enough, man. It just hasn't been good enough. And Jay Chapman, he has his own limitations, but I like what I saw from him on Wednesday, and I think he gives you more than Blaise Matuidi does. If Blaise Matuidi could play up to the player he was, well, no,
he's not a deal breaker. If you're telling me Gregory will not start, then yeah.
But it's not about it being a deal breaker. It's about the defensive. What does Blaise Matuidi is just so poor defensively, so regularly. He just lacks that defensive awareness that I think Jay Chapman, even though he's not the best defender either, he gives you a little bit more because he doesn't have those lapses in concentration that Blaise Matuidi tends to have. So I think Jay Chapman gives you a bit more right now. With the ball, he's also pretty solid, and he passed well in this game. He fed Federico Higuain in the second minute with a nice through pass, and it led to a goal, but it was called back for offside against Toronto FC. So, I think there is a drop-off from Jay Chapman to Blaise Matuidi. I would start Jay Chapman. Phil Neville said he's 60-40. If he can go, I think you start him because I think he gives you more with the ball and even without the ball at this point. Because, you've said it all the time, and I think we have this same belief in terms of how we view the game. There's different ways to view the game, obviously, and how to play it. But you can defend with the ball and without the ball. And with Jay Chapman on the field, I think Inter Miami is also better with the ball and can defend themselves in that way by knocking it around and creating attacking sequences.
All right, let's disagree on that one. Let's let the listeners decide whether there's a huge difference in the middle for Inter Miami if Jay Chapman or if Blaise Matuidi plays. I say there's not a big deal. Both of them rely a lot on Gregory. Gregory does the job for both of them, and they just are a complement right next to him. That's my.
Hey, I didn't say huge. I'm smiling right now, by the way, but I didn't say huge difference. I just said that there's a notable difference, and I think it's for the worse when Blaise Matuidi's in there as opposed to Jay Chapman. And I think a lot of the goals we've seen over the course of the season are testaments to that. But quickly, Jose, what's your prediction for this game? Does Inter Miami keep its season alive with another victory? Or do they suffer a draw or a loss that will pretty much all but end their season?
It's going to be a win for Inter Miami, and it is going to be a big one. It's going to be 4-0 Inter Miami. Pipita Higuain scores a hat-trick.
Wow.
And the fourth goal will be, guess what? Blaise Matuidi will score for you.
Okay.
And he'll look at the press box, point at the press box, and he won't be looking for me. Guess who will be looking for?
He's going to be looking for me? Oh, man. All right. So I got to make sure I wear like a camouflage suit. I like to wear my suits to the games. I'm going to have to wear a camouflage suit so you can't see me. No, look, honestly, you said it earlier in the pod. We call it like we see it on here, and we tell what we think is, our truths or how we view things. And I unfortunately think with the lack of defensive solidity that they'll have, just the inexperience and just the lack of understanding that Mccoon and Mabika will have, I think we're going to see a 2-2 draw. I think it'll make for a great spectacle, but I don't know if Inter Miami will have enough at the back to get the job done. And it's not even necessarily just a question of their individual skills. I think it's more about them understanding each other and being on the same page as a tandem, because Inter Miami didn't even practice today, Friday. They didn't even practice today to work through, different moments or even do any ball work. From what Inter Miami has said publicly, they did no ball work and they just trained in the gym today. It's why the portion of practice that we were supposed to go and be able to see was canceled. We didn't get to see any of practice today because apparently they did not practice. So, just going off of that, I think it's going to be a very tough challenge for Mabika and Mccoon to just to keep it that tight at the back. I think they will give up chances. I think FC Cincinnati, I think they'll score 2, and I think it'll end up in a frustrating, disappointing 2-2 draw that practically ends the season. I know that's probably a bit of a Debbie Downer, but that's just how I see it. I just don't know if that tandem can hold up. If they do, it will be an immense kudos, immense props to them, and immense props to Phil Neville for being able to get them to get the job done on such short notice. Because, again, they didn't train on Friday. Thursday was a recovery day for Mccoon, so they practically never really worked together as a center-back pairing. So something to keep an eye on, and that's why I think it's the key to the game on Saturday. But let's take another quick break. We have our Q&A session. We'll keep it short because we had a lengthy one last time, but we have our Q&A session. We'll do that after this. Okay, PS5 Jose, it's Q&A time. I haven't called you by your nickname on this pod. I don't know if you noticed that or not yet, but do you like the nickname, or do you think we should call you something else? Because you have your PS5. It started as a joke because you didn't have a PS5, so I was calling you PS4 Jose as a tease, and now I'm calling you PS5 Jose. I've seen some people use it, some listeners use it in other social platforms, but I don't know if you like the nickname, if you want to change it.
I like the nickname, and
Okay.
and if listeners like it, let's roll with it.
Okay, and there's history behind it. So, next season when, we have new listeners, they'll be like, why is he called PS5 Jose? People will have to explain the story of how you became the famed PS5 Jose. But anyway, Jose, first question comes from Don Cafecito. He says, your thoughts on the rumored Brazilians, Jean Mota and Rafael Veiga, making their way to Miami. So this is a report that came out from Brazil, or reports that came out from Brazil this week, about these two Brazilian players that Inter Miami is reportedly in negotiations with. So, Jose, I'll let you start, but I will say before you go, where there's smoke, there's fire. And if there's that much smoke coming out of Brazil, I think there's definitely some truth to it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, especially with Inter Miami, because there are so many rumors out there. Every other week, it's James Rodriguez or Falcao. I think those two are always on the list, right? So, but this time, it seems a lot more credible. Although I saw a few reports that actually linked one of the players with Miami FC and not with Inter Miami, which is something that happens as well very often internationally. But listen, I'm going to have to do my homework with these two guys when it comes to what they bring to the table on the field. But anytime you look at a Brazilian player, and I think we've seen it with Gregory this year, expectations should be high. There's a lot of quality football there, and I'll do my homework, and I promise next podcast I'm not going to talk about, because I don't like to talk a lot about rumors, and you'll learn that about me in the pod. I'm not your guy for rumors. I will talk about how they play and how they can benefit the team on the field. That's my style. So just put it out there.
Okay.
So
okay. A man that's has his defined lines here. I like it.
Yeah. I just rumors, especially with Inter Miami rumors. Sometimes,
yeah, they don't stop. They don't stop.
Yeah, they don't stop, and they get me upset a little bit because
why?
Why? I read so many things out there that it makes no sense at all, and people that write a lot about Inter Miami, and they have yet to watch a minute of the team on the field. But Inter Miami gets you clicks, and I understand that.
Well, look, I think part of it. I don't want to get off on a side tangent here, but I think part of it, especially with the bigger name players, I think part of it is negotiation tactics and negotiation ploys from agents. They fill out, or they filter out maybe not true information to reporters close to them on other parts of the world, and it helps raise the value in their player, in their client, right? It raises their value. If Miami, David Beckham's team is after this player, then maybe a different team is going to bid a little bit more or pay the player a little bit more, and in turn the agent gets a little bit more. So I think there's an element of that. I saw that firsthand with the New York Red Bulls when I first started covering them. In 2012, they were linked to a lot of names like Inter Miami is now, just because they were one of those flashier, sexier teams at that time, at least from a brand perspective and from a worldwide perspective. But anyway, going back to the two Brazilian players, look, I think there's some truth to it. Gregory obviously has come in this year. That was a Chris Henderson move. So I think that there is some truth to it. And thankfully for you, Jose, you don't have to do as much homework, because I had a sit down with Gregory today. I had a sit down, a one-on-one interview with him, spoke to him in my Portuñol, which is not the best, but he understood me. And I asked him about the players, and he specifically knew about Jean Mota. He knew about him because he said the two had played together at Santos, and he said he's a good central midfielder, a number 8. He called him a number 8 in Portuguese, that can also play as a left back. So just based off of that description, I was like, you know what? That sounds to me, I didn't tell him this is just what I thought in my head. I was like, that sounds to me like the exact type of player that Inter Miami is going to be going to be looking for this offseason, because, obviously Blaise Matuidi hasn't cut it as a DP in that center of the park. So I think if they can find a Brazilian central midfielder that can play the 8 and give them more than Blaise Matuidi does, and can also be covered at left back, I think that's certainly a player that they'd be interested in. And I have to imagine that they're after him, but that's just my supposition from the outside. That's not information. It's just me reading between the lines from what we do know. And as for Vega, he's a more of an attacking midfielder. So ideally, or in theory, not ideally, in theory, he would probably be taking Rodolfo Pizarro's spot if they can get rid of Rodolfo Pizarro. So I absolutely think that there's truth to these rumors. Next question comes from Elder Bar. Do you feel there was improvement because of the change in formation in the last game, or is Toronto just a wreck of a team? Can you review who needs to lose for us to get to 7th if we win with what's left? Does Rodolfo need to agree to terms if sold for less, or can he refuse? So a lot in there from Elder Bar. Jose, tackle one of those questions and I'll tackle the other. You can have your pick at them.
All right, I'll go with the win against Toronto. I think you have to give credit. Of course, you're playing, not exactly one of the top teams in the league, but I think the performance, and we mentioned this early on in the pod, you give credit. I think you give credit to Inter Miami for the performance, and you give credit to Phil for changing the formation, which is something that he did not wanted to do just a few weeks ago. But he came to mind that it was needed, and we have to give credit to the coaching staff and to the players for a good performance. So, yeah, give them credit.
So I will touch on the sacar la calculadora part, to take out the calculators part, where he wants to know who needs to lose. Look, right now Inter Miami's on 35 points. In 6th place is Montreal with 42, and 7th is DC United with 41. We'll leave it with just 7th place to make the math easier. So that's 6 points, right? That Inter Miami has to make up in order to get to that last playoff spot. But it's not just about the 6 points, right? Because they have 12 still up for grabs, and they could easily get 6, they could get 9, they could get 12. But it's about how many points the other teams get, right? It's the fate of Inter Miami is not completely in their hands. So DC United would have to slip up, right, in a big way. New York City, who is in 8th place, also has 41 points. They would need to slip up. The New York Red Bulls, who have a game in hand, they did not play on Wednesday night during MLS's busy slate. They have 40 points. If they, games in hand don't necessarily mean points, automatic points, but if they win their next game, that puts them at 43. So the New York Red Bulls are also in the mix, and you have to watch out what they're doing. Columbus is also ahead of Inter Miami with 38. So another team that is in the mix as well. So a lot of teams have to slip up in addition to Inter Miami winning, which is why it's a very, very tough challenge. Phil Neville has more than once now called it a monumentous, or a mountain of a climb for the team. It's a steep challenge. It would take, I think I said this on Wednesday, it would take 2 miracles for Inter Miami to make the postseason. At least that's my opinion. I think that's the team's opinion as well, because if they have a mountain to climb, it's obviously not very easy for them. So it's definitely going to be a tough challenge. But, it's sports, and unpredictable things or wild things can happen in sports. And quickly, just to touch on your last question about Rodolfo, does he need to agree to terms if he's sold for less? I mean, you normally want a player to go somewhere where he wants to go, or where he's happy going, right? Like, you normally sell a player, but he has to come to terms with that team in terms of his contract, etc. So, can he refuse? I mean, he could be unhappy about going somewhere, and then I don't think that team's going to want to buy him if he's unhappy. So, I don't know if he can refuse outright, but obviously, that the player's viewpoint is definitely taken into consideration when selling. It's not like, NFL or NBA style where you can just trade and the player just has to go and do it. Like, they have more say when it comes to being bought out, etc., etc. But next question.
There's one thing, though, to keep in mind when it comes to Pizarro, and it's the World Cup.
Right.
Mexico will qualify to the World Cup, and Pizarro wants to be in the World Cup because he has been a part of the Mexican national team in the last few years, especially with Tata Martino taking over. So, he's going to want to go to a place that he actually gets minutes, and that he's actually, an important part of that team. because you can tell that he's an important part of Inter Miami, but he's not playing right now. So if he keeps this trend, he's not going to be in the World Cup. So that's also
Absolutely.
something to keep in mind.
Definitely. I think that's one of the reasons why he'll be more than willing to go somewhere else, because he needs to get playing time and he needs to move probably in order for that to happen, and to boost his chances of getting to the World Cup roster, which I imagine is an ambition of his. But obviously not he hasn't come out and said that, but I imagine it's a safe bet. Next question comes.
Here's the question though: what if Pipita retires?
I still think they're going to try to get rid of all three DPs. I don't think they bring Rodolfo back. I don't think.
Yeah, because of the sanctions and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just don't think that he fits Phil Neville and Chris Henderson's vision. He was brought on board by the previous regime. Diego Alonso is Diego Alonso's handpicked guy, and Paul McDonough. So just don't think he fits with what they want, and I think that they definitely want to get someone that can be a little bit more productive or that plays a different style than Pizarro does. But next question comes from Atlante Herons. Is Inter Miami going to get a mascot, or should fans continue to expect entertainment in the form of Neville's ridiculous comments? Wow. So Atlante Herons, even with Wednesday's win, is still not been won over by Phil Neville. But look, Inter Miami going to get a mascot. I think you're saying that in jest, tongue in cheek. I mean, obviously, I don't think they're going to get a mascot. As for Neville's comments, I don't know which ones you're referring to right now. I did think, and it was honest and candid, but I was a bit surprised that he shared that Robbie Robinson had diarrhea today. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, a little bit. I think that's too much information, but
Hey, no, never too much information. We are media members. We want the information. I was just surprised that he was that candid about it. With regards to Robbie's situation.
Why though? Describe it in a different. I don't know. I think if he had said that he had stomach problems or something like that, not feeling well, I think we could all have assumed what was going on, right? But I guess I'll take it. I'll take it. Listen, no, Phil's a nice guy. Phil's a nice guy. I think I do agree that sometimes he gets frustrated, and I think especially the situation with the referees just a few weeks ago. It's part of the game. I think Phil wants to win as much as the fan base wants Inter Miami to win. He has an added pressure as well because of David Beckham. We all know there's a relationship there, and if the time comes that David Beckham tells Phil, to move on, or that the team needs to move on, that's not a conversation that you want to have. So, listen, Phil's a nice guy. He needs to do a better job with the team. We need better results. You need a much better performance. But at the end of the day, I think it's working really hard in it. And if it doesn't happen, I think it's not all on him. It's also on the players and especially on that first Inter Miami year, all the sanctions and all the things that were done, not the way they were supposed to. It's a long process for Inter Miami to get where they want to be.
As critical as I have been of Phil Neville throughout the course of this season for different things, whether it's tactically or whatever, I will not criticize him for being honest in today's press conference. It's what we want out of coaches. We want the insight, the honesty, and the candidness. And he was very candid. So I was surprised that he was that candid, but I appreciate the honesty. So will not criticize Phil Neville for that. But last question comes from Trent Krim. And it says, can't wait for the episode on what moves you'd like to see this offseason, especially considering sanctions. I tried to work some ideas out, but hard with allocation figures. Actually think we can field a decent 11 based on who else is out there. Just not sure how to get there. So obviously we will do that. We will tackle that in an episode. We're probably going to wait until the season ends because there's still games to talk about, regardless of whether Inter Miami's in or out of the playoff picture. There will be different developments on the field, and that will make up the bulk of the next few episodes. But once the season is over, fully expect us to dive into and sink our teeth into this offseason and which players should come back, which players should not, how Inter Miami can make it work, etc., etc. And there will be a full episode dedicated to that, and mostly that because obviously it's a very big talking point with Inter Miami this winter, this offseason. So fully expect that to come in the next few weeks. That does it for the Q&A session, unless you had something you wanted to add there, Jose.
No, just, share the excitement because I think, it's going to be a busy off season. We're going to see a lot of moving parts. And, I think that's the start this year. It's been challenging, but as we move forward, I think the team should start showing the fan base where they want to go, and this is a good start. The offseason should be a very good start, and it's going to be really interesting. So I can't wait to talk about the moves and where the team is going.
The fact that some fans are already looking ahead to next year as opposed to maybe the playoff push or trying to still be in it. I mean, I think that just speaks to how some fans perceive this team as just not being good enough overall, which is a fair assessment because the team hasn't been great this year. Obviously, they're still alive. Probably not going to make it, but they're still alive. But people are already looking to next year because they want to see a better team than what was put out there this year. But anyway, that does it for the Q&A session. Let's give our final thoughts and we'll wrap up this pod. Jose, you can start, and then I'll go, and we'll wrap up the pod after that.
All right, my final thought it's related to the fans.
I thought you were going to say something on Miami FC. I'm surprised.
No, not Miami FC. Although next pod I'll talk about Miami
Okay.
FC, 'cause there's something going on there.
Yeah, it's
but,
weird.
I just want to give I've been covering soccer in South Florida for a while now, and I've been in stadiums where we have 500 fans, and some of the time when big celebrity, or not celebrity, big time player like Raul came over, I was in games that we had 11,000 fans, and we thought that was amazing. So I just want to remind fans in South Florida that what we have right now with Inter Miami, it's something that was years away just a few months ago. So go out there and enjoy the game. They may not play at a high level, but for the people that have been here for a while, just enjoy the last few games. When you go back into the season and you look at this team, you also have to find a sense of how great it is to have MLS back in South Florida. So just go to the games, enjoy, have a good time, enjoy the stadium. Hopefully they get you a win or 3 points. And I'm telling you this, Franco, because of what I saw as I was coming out of the stadium, the excitement in the fans, the people wearing the Inter Miami colors, the jerseys. And I kind of reflect on that a little bit on Wednesday, and that excitement that was not here for a while and now is here. So we only have a few games left in the schedule, and it's going to be a long time because, it's not a quick turnaround in MLS when it comes to the offseason. So enjoy the games, go to the stadium tomorrow night, and have a lot of fun.
So my final thought, well, beyond the Miami FC topic, let's talk about it. Because I think it's an interesting talking point, because you mentioned it to me before we started the pod, and that is that in their most recent game against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, an own goal was scored, but then it wasn't scored because the referees just decided it wasn't an own goal, and now a corner kick's going to take place instead. So that's very strange for a professional league and for an officiating crew. Like, to me, that sounds like pee-wee soccer. Like, that's something that you would see at at little kids in a park. That they're like, okay, let's not have that player have an own goal to his name or her name. Let's do a corner kick instead. I don't know. That's very strange to happen on a professional level. That game is going to be replayed from that minute of when the own goal happened, because it did finish in a draw without the own goal. It was finished and it ended in a draw, but the goal is going to be given and the game is going to be replayed from that minute onward, in a very strange situation in American soccer, and it has South Florida ties to it.
That gives, though, an opportunity to Miami FC to still play for second place in the division, I should say, which means they could actually host a playoff game. So, as of right now, it's not looking very good because they're down by 1 goal. But if they're able to score 2 goals in 24 minutes, this could end up being a good thing for Miami FC.
Right, they have another chance, right? They have another chance at it, even though it's not necessarily in their favor. They will have an opportunity to try to turn it around. So I guess it is a blessing in disguise, somewhat. Very strange though, just a very strange turn of events in USL there. But anyway, that does it for this week's pod. We talked quite a bit about Inter Miami and even had some talking points about Miami FC. We'll be back again in a matter of a few days because Inter Miami has the weekend game. We will review and recap that one as well as preview the next match, which will be on another quick turnaround next Wednesday. So expect to hear our voices again very soon. Thank you guys again so much for listening. For Jose Armando, I am Franco Panizo. This is Miami Total Football Radio. We'll talk to you guys again very, very